What's up, cousins? We are back with another video. Today we have a special guest, Father of the Year, actually. But I'll let him introduce himself.
My name is Murphy Rocher. You online, you may know me as Accepting Uncle Murphy, or as I'm becoming more and more known as that dad, like that dad on the internet that talks to his baby, which is pretty much my brand right now. And so it's been really fun. We were at the Unrivaled in Brooklyn where I saw you last, and my wife Tracy had just finished breastfeeding, and she was still in like the pod in the stadium, and I was going to like get some paper towels or something out of the bathroom, and I'm crossing the concourse, and from down the way someone screams, "Oh my god, it's that dad!" and Tracy's hearing it from inside of like the pod, being like, "Oh my god, here we go again." So it's been fun to reach that point where, I not necessarily people knowing my name, but people being able to recognize like, "Oh, you're that dad that does that thing." So that's pretty cool.
Well, first off, congratulations. You have a child. You blowing up on social media. Like what has been the moment that you realize, well, this is bigger than me just talking to my child?
There's been a bunch of different moments. I've been an entertainer in different capacities for most of my life, and none of it has landed the way that this moment is landing for me. And so, being at Unrivaled, having people pull me aside and say, "Hey, I really love your content. What you're doing, really helps me through my day." And that's really the point of what I'm trying to do. And then the thing that really drove it home was when the people I was making content about actually like responded or commented. I've made a couple of video but right now, well, we'll get into this possibly, but right now there's a whole free agency thing going on with Tasha Cloud, and I made a video about her and got a comment from her, thanking me for the content. But in the past, I had referenced during the Unrivaled season, referenced how much I love her and love her activism and love the way that she plays. And then getting a comment from one of the things that happens on TikTok is like you reference someone in your video and then 50 people comment their name. So
Yeah.
she's getting tagged all the
Yeah.
time in my videos. But knowing that like you're at the point where people are actually seeing it. And then last week, I made a video, or it wouldn't have been last week, but couple weeks ago. I made a video about Gino Oriama's crash out. And I try to do a good job of knowing my lane, of just like, I'm very conscious of taking space. I'm a white man. I am, in a heterosexual relationship with a child. I present a very, my, I, when I used to do stand up, I would joke that like, I look like I have a mesh bag full of soccer balls in my trunk. I'm that type of dad. That's what I look like and what the world sees me as. And so I know how I present. And so I'm very conscious of the space that I take up. But then like an old white man does some heinous stuff
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
to a black woman. I'm like, okay, maybe a white man speaking to some other white men is appropriate in this case. So made a video about Gino and his crash out, and Don Lemon picked it up and put it on his morning show. And so I was getting tagged left and right. People being like, "Did you see that you were on Don Lemon?" And so it was actually Don Lemon's like birthday show. So he's sitting there like sipping champagne and playing my video and like sipping champagne and like nodding along and like pointing at the video. I'm like, this is cool. That like
Yeah.
this is pretty cool. So when those things are happening, that's when like like you're onto something, or people are connecting with your material, and that like the feedback has been the thing that's really made it feel like this is something worth keep putting
Yeah.
time and effort into.
Um, Now I know you given me a little of your background. I mean, I'm about to say I've known you guys for over a year. We actually first met at Unrivaled season 1
Yep.
opening weekend.
Yep.
Um, but like, have you always been a women's basketball fan or women's sports in general?
Yes and no. There's times where, I like, and this is where I always try to be honest about my story and about who I am, and own where I, haven't like, I was a 15-year-old white man at one point in my life, and that was not my favorite version of myself. But I grew up I was the youngest of five, and we were a big sports family, and I had three older sisters. My three older sisters were all three sport varsity athletes. One of my sisters played two sports in college. Another sister played one sport in college. And so it was just like I grew up in gymnastics gyms for hours and hours at a time. I grew up, watching my sister's teams and cheering for them as a family. And then I grew up in Minnesota where we were a basketball family. I loved basketball growing up, and that was our main thing. And I grew up in Minnesota where until Anthony Edwards, our men's pro team was the laughing stock of the NBA. And our men's college basketball team, the Gophers, had one Final Four run, but got caught cheating and got that vacated and was been, pretty terrible the whole time. And then when it comes to women's basketball, then we have the Lynx, who are like the premier franchise. Like you could other markets, the Liberty and other things, but like in terms of quality on the court, great franchise, the way they treat their players, the fan base, Lynx are a premier brand in all of sports. And then the women's Gopher team, my like seminal experience with women's basketball was, I must have been early in high. I'm forgetting. It's okay because it fits with my brand as a dad, but like I'm forgetting the years and I'm forgetting the timeline. I forget exactly what year it was, but I remember very vividly following the Gopher women's Final Four run, and that was the year with Lindsay Whalen and Janelle McCarville. And McCarville ended up being a number one overall pick. And Lindsay Whalen had a great career in the WNBA and is coaching now. I think she had a head coaching gig. She's coaching with, I think she's an assistant with the Lynx right now. But I remember watching those two as like like a fantastic pick and roll point guard and big duo taking, my team to the Final Four. And just, I remember watching and being so enthralled by this Final Four run and like turning to my like male friends and like my male cohort and like seeing people not care and not getting it. And
Yeah.
then, I started to make more sense of it as I got older. And so I've been watching, obviously when watching the growth of the W and the growth of the women's game, which is fantastic, but I've had a very interesting seat watching men's reactions to women's basketball change over time. Obviously, there's still a lot of people who suck. And there's a lot of people who think they like basketball, but don't really know what they're watching. But I think, but it's been really fun in the especially last 10 or 15 years, watching, basketball fans, of any gender, like really watching good basketball in the women's game get better and better and better. And frankly, watching the watchability of especially the men's pro game just sort of decline a little bit of just in the age of the analytics and shoot threes or get a layup and go quick and don't play any defense.
Yeah.
It's not as much fun basketball to watch. Whereas the women's game, still plenty of analytics, still plenty of shooting a lot of threes, but there's an intensity and there's something that these women are playing for that is, just on a different level right now. And it's just, to me, it's the best basketball to be watching in the world right now.
Yeah, that's honestly how my dad like, I mean, I played basketball when I was younger. I switched to track, went to college for track, but like my dad, like he would come to games and stuff like that. He didn't understand why I was at Dream Games when I was 10 and 11. But now like when Angel, came to Atlanta, he texted me, he said, "Hey, what does this mean for the Dream?" It's like
Everything.
this feels great. This feels great, that you understand and are paying attention to what's going on.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that's where you're seeing the star power of some of these women of like we're in the age of social media and we're in the age of being a brand. Like okay, Jordan was a brand and Lisa Leslie was a brand. But now we're in the age where like everyone down the line, whether you're, you can be the sixth player or whatever. And if you have done your work on social media, you can have built a following and have your own brand that you're working with and protecting. And then, so you have this whole era of players who have been, for this is the crazy thing about high end sports that I don't think a lot of people, I don't think a lot of the casual fan understands, but people who really know a sport, whether it's, like we were a big football school, in high school, I played football and basketball and we knew like we knew freshman year, we knew this kid's going to the NFL. These three kids are going D1 and these 20 kids can play D3. It's like,
yeah.
early on. And if you know sports, like at a very young age, people have, kids singled out, being like, this kid has the talent to go all the way. And then you get a lot of people in your ear, and in a good situation, you get good advice, you get mentorship, you get a leg up. And then obviously there's the story. But I think we're seeing a generation of women's athletes who have had people in their ear since they were young saying like, hey, this kid is good. This kid has the talent and the a lot of it is natural skill, body type that is built like, you got to be tall enough, you got
Yeah,
to be
you
strong.
can't teach height. We always say
Yeah,
you can't teach
and so it's
height.
like, okay, this kid's getting tall, they can dribble, they can shoot, they have that motor. And so it's like, I think someone like Angel has been the absolute pinnacle of building a brand, absolute pinnacle of being a businesswoman who like, and you could like, you could have a pretty interesting argument about like, which is she better? Is she a better basketball player or a better businesswoman? And it doesn't matter. She's doing both great. And so it's fantastic for the league. But that level of visibility and that level of polish on, being a public figure and also great at your sport is that connection point for fans who are right there ready to love this basketball league right now, and all the other leagues that are popping up around it, and the way that they're facilitating this popularity. it that's where you're just bringing in that critical mass that led to this CBA that we just got, and are leading to the success of AU and Unrivaled, and and all of these other leagues that are knowing that if you do things right, people want to watch this basketball and they love these players. And it's because these players have been working at being that athlete and that role model for their whole lives. And and so it's really fun to watch. Yeah, I'm a Sky fan, or well, I'm a Lynx fan.
You just happen to live in the city. Yeah.
I grew up in Minnesota, and I happened to land and be in the Chicagoland area, and so my local team is the Sky, so we support them. Not a huge fan of some of the choices they've made, but it's one of those where like I was making the
Think I have some pictures of some of your signs at the game from last year.
yeah,
I
I
might
think
have to include those so people know where you
yeah.
stand.
Well, and so one of the like sort of like being cognizant of taking up space. One of the things I learned, so when I got back into the W, like I had been watching the Lynx and been a big fan of the Lynx, and then just in my personal journey, I had like stopped, like I got super into just binge watching TV shows, and I got super into like long form narrative, and I stopped paying attention to sports. I had been too into sports my whole life. And then there was a time where I was like, you know what? I just don't care anymore. It's like, where it's like, why am I in 5 fantasy football leagues? Like, this isn't like worth it. And so like and then COVID hit, and like the isolation of COVID helped me relearn, oh, sport is about community. Sport is about connection. Sport is about, even if you're just watching it on TV, it's something live happening that connects you to those around you. And it was like that COVID moment of just like, oh, I was so into sports as a kid, and then it went away a little bit. And now it's back even further. It's like, oh, I just took for granted the community aspect of sport. And so coming back to the W, I was realizing that like and my wife Tracy is fantastic. She's a huge fan. She's a huge advocate for the game. And she's fantastic. And there'd be times where and we loved making signs and holding up stuff. And there'd be times I'd have an idea for a sign, and she'd be like, well, that's negative. Why do you want to be negative? And I was realizing that I was bringing some of the toxicity that you find in men's sports into the W, and realizing that like the W has a really great history of positive fandom, of love the players you love, cheer for whoever you want to cheer for, support the community around your teams. And yeah, compete and be pissed when your team loses, and if it gets chippy, you have an edge on you about that player, you don't like how they act. Like, it's still competitive, but there's a baseline of positivity. And I was realizing that I was letting like the sort of toxic nature you see you know in men's sporting events, where it's just you yell whatever you want at these players, and was really like, oh, I got to check that a little bit. So in what was making me think of that was the sign you were referencing. I I had an opinion last year that the Chicago Sky front office did Teaspoon wrong and did Kennedy Carter wrong. And I don't know the story, but there's got to be a story. Something
Yeah,
something
yeah,
was
yeah.
going on. And so and they were saying we built this roster to win now, and I'm watching a roster. finished second to last place. And then I'm watching the star of that roster, Angel Reese, call out like, "Hey, like this roster and people, this roster doesn't have what we need to win right now," and people reacting like she did something wrong, saying it.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. That was all craziness to me. So in in uh in the old mindset, I would have been like, fire Jeff. And Tracy was like, "Well, do you really want to hold up that sign?" So the sign I made was free Jeff to pursue his other passions. And I was like, to me, that was the putting a positive spin on fire your GM. But I was like, no, let's free this man to go pursue a different passion. One door closes, another door opens. I'm sure he has a bright future somewhere, and someone's going to be extremely happy to have his talents. And maybe that's just not my
Just
team
not
right
us. Yeah, it's just
now.
it's not.
And so it's like, so that and so we posted that one on Threads, and that one got some love for that sign. And it was just like, so that's where I'm trying to bring the energy. Like, yeah, I'm critical of the front office, but I'm trying to come at it from a place of like, okay, don't just be a toxic fan. Let's try to build on, because people have worked really hard in the W to build a culture of acceptance and a culture of fandom for basketball. And we're seeing this new wave of fans, that's the Caitlin Clark effect, and a lot of things going on with that. um, that the average fan, we need to be working hard to continue to protect the carve out space for that positivity, carve out space for that community
Yeah.
first.
So, like, what I always tell people is it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Hmm.
And it's like someone who I believe always, like, is on that line, toes that line is I think it's, like, Dan Rodriguez on Threads. He toes that line always, but he never crosses it. Some people get on Threads and they just post whatever, how they feel, and you can. There's no problem with that. But if somebody receives it wrong, it's because of how you said it. Cause some of the things that Dan says is like you kind of look at it sideways. It's like, oh, but like, ha ha, funny. Like I get where you were going with it, but it wasn't disrespectful.
Yeah, you put enough thought into the tact with it. And and like you said, and this is I come from a world of stand-up comedy. I was a stand-up comedian for 10 years, and now I used to say failed stand-up comedian, now I say retired. But I never really made it. But it was like, but that was a world of like free speech and say whatever you want. And it's just like, sure, yeah, I will defend your right to say whatever you want under free speech. But at the same time, it's like, why is that what you want to say?
Yeah,
Why is that like, why do you want to choose negativity and toxicity? And it's like, and I'm a big believer in, you can say whatever you want as long as it's funny enough. Like if it lands,
yeah,
great. But like
yeah,
if what you said was, dark or mean or edgy, and it doesn't land, then it's like you're just hurting people. And so
yeah.
it's like, I appreciate people who put in the time to craft what they're saying well enough that if they're going to take a shot, or if they're going to, have a take that's a little bit more critical, that they find the way to do that in a way that lands. And I've found, and I'm human. I've had my moments on Threads where I'm like, oh, that, as I reread, I see the comments, and as I reread what I just wrote through their eyes, it's like, oh, I see exactly why that hit you that way, and I didn't do good enough. And so my take is always like, I don't delete stuff. I apologize and own it and try to do better, so that people can see, like, yeah, I admit this. I should not have said that way. I missed some context where that would have landed as offensive for you, and I need to do better. And so it's like, and I know a lot of people will just delete and move on, but to me, it's important to, especially for white men, to, as when I screw up, model how to own it and do better. And it's just like, and I've been in that moment where it's like, especially with women's basketball, there's a lot of things where it's like, I have very strong opinions about some very specific queer women of color. It's about how they play. It's about what they did on the court. And it's like, but if I choose the wrong word, it's going to bring up a connotation, like, and it's just like, okay, I have to be good enough to not have to be good enough. I strive to do a good enough job of choosing my words accurately, to not conjure the wrong image, to not accidentally use a dog
Offend
whistle.
somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Yeah.
And that's where it's like, yeah, then that's my role in as a WNBA. If I get to cheer for this league, if I get to love it as much as the next person, how I'm showing up, I have to be aware of those things, and be responsible for my words and my actions.
Yeah, I think probably pre Courtside Cousins, pre sports media, like I feel like sometimes I would have just typed out whatever. And it's like now and it's not that I'm shying away from it because I still have my opinion, but it's like now when I type something up, how would somebody who's a stan of said player perceive this? How would the player perceive this? Is the player gonna come back and curse me out and block me on social
Right.
media? You know? Um and it's like you can say what you wanna say, but again, it's just how you say it, how you type it out.
And I think what you're referring, and I've been feeling this too for myself. What you're referring to there is like, if you put yourself out there, it's one thing to be a keyboard warrior, and the people who say the worst stuff don't have a profile picture and they have 8 followers, and it's like, but you're putting yourself out there, you're building, and it's like, and I talk about personal brands and I talk about building brands, but also it's like it's more than that. It's like it's building a following, it's building something real, it's creating art in a lot of ways, and you're building something that matters to you and matters to people who watch you and care about what you have to say. And the more you put yourself out there, the more it matters, the more people are going to see and respond. And it's like, yeah, you have a responsibility to not only like others and how somebody might react, but to yourself of like, is that how you want to be representing yourself? Like I know, um I one of the times that didn't do good enough, was I had some baggage around how much the Chicago Sky gave up to bring in Marina Mabrey, and then in, like, the Unrivaled season, I'm like, personally, for me,
You're probably not the only one. You're
yeah,
probably
and I know I'm not the only one, but then it's like,
listen, I
and
know you're
then
not the only one because I was there with you. Like,
yeah, yeah, exactly. But it's like she's crashing out, and to me, there's me as a dad, and then there's me as like content creator and someone who talks about women's basketball. So as a dad, my stance is if my daughter were playing basketball and she were getting the moniker crash out queen, my advice to her would be, just because there's a cute name for it doesn't mean that that's an okay way to behave. Like, let's work on, like, you're allowed to be angry, you're allowed to express your anger, you're allowed to be frustrated and express your frustration. But if you're doing so in a way that that's the way people see you, maybe that's something that we can work on together and give you some tools to grow in how you express that frustration and make sure you're getting what you need out of those moments. And it's like, and if you want your brand to be the crash out queen, and the crash, the what was the brand that had the crash test dummies as their, like, you're maybe too young for this, but there was a
think
TV
I
commercial back anyway. But if you want, like, Midas Car Care to, like, be your main
yeah,
sponsor because you're the crash out queen, great. If that's your brand, go for it. If you wanna be a heel, like, this is also entertainment, so there's room to choose to be a heel and make that your brand, and that could be a part of, what gives you and your family generational wealth. Great, go for it. But if that's not what you're going for, then let's work on it. And then as a fan, I'm like, you know what? This is a great athlete. This is a great player. They express their emotion the way they want to. They are a strong, loud woman who expresses anger the way that they do. That is a net positive for the world. Someone taking space, being like, hey, you can show your anger, you can play this way and still be a star. It's like, it's not my favorite, but I have to acknowledge, like, yeah, if I'm gonna say something negative about Marina Mabrey, she means a lot to a lot of people. And I get why, and I agree with why, and I agree that we need more space for women to express anger safely and not have negative consequences in the workplace because they express their anger about something that's justifiably angering. Like,
yeah,
yeah, that is really important for our world. And just because, like, just because I'm used to thinking as just a basketball fan, it's like, I gotta acknowledge that. Yep, I not every take needs to make it to threads. Not every
yeah,
take needs to get written down. And it's just
yeah,
like, I don't need to say anything about Marina Mabrey. I'll just let her have her moment, and her fans love it. And she has enough haters. I don't need to be an extra one. And it
yeah,
was just that, like, frustrate. It was my team. and her being like the all-star on my team and us losing and being like, I wanted more out of her. And so it's like, yep, I can do better.
Like, there's always space to be a fan of of a player, but, like, it takes a lot of energy to, like, not like, to be a hater of said player. Because my biggest thing is I'm not gonna sit on social media and talk about someone I just don't like. That
Hmm.
goes for if you're arguing with the cousins on threads, that goes for a player. There's no way I'm sitting up and I'm this is growth. This is growth for me because at one point, we used to kiki, we used to joke, and like I love Marina right now. Like Marina's funny. The whole family actually is hilarious. Met Roydell in Philly. So yeah, like what they're building in their brand, and and once you realize and take a step back to see like how their family is, they're all like this. It's not just one. Um, but when you take that step back and look at a player, it's like, okay, well, it's the whole family. You guys are from Jersey.
Yeah, and it's a there's a piece of representation to that. It's like, and how great if that's what your family is like, because yeah, you're people are gonna judge all sorts of ways in your life, and it's just like to have that, like, oh, I that's how my family is, and these people are making it, and and people love them for it. It's wonderful, and I think there's a like you were mentioning just the energy it takes to be a hater, and it's just like I know where it comes from and I know how it grew. It's the clickbait culture. It's like
Yeah,
negative takes and incendiary comments get following, but it's like like it is just not. It's not people substitute personality for hating something. I don't like when people substitute like why focus on what you hate when you could focus on what you love. And why spend time, and it's no more prevalent than like in music culture and like like it comes from the like culture of like critics in the newspaper and writing about movies and writing about music, and you either have to love it or you have to take, you either love it or you hate it, and you
yeah.
build your brand based on that. And it's just like, why yuck someone's yum, why be a hater and let because there's so much there's so much actually wrong with our world. There's so much to actually be furious about. Like, why would I take time and energy to care about someone's attitude on a basketball court when like there's things happening off the
So
court
yeah,
that are
that's what
like
I always
really
said.
tough?
Like the world already like is on fire enough. I always say like for a black woman, the world already hates us. So it's like why are we tearing each other down? The world already hates us. Can we please just come together and enjoy basketball?
Have you been how have you been in that culture in women's basketball in like in the last, I mean, women's basketball has just been crazy in in the sort of post Caitlin Clark, but now with the CBA, how, from your seat, how have you been seeing the growth of that attitude and that culture in women's basketball right now? Because I'll leave an open-ended question because I'm just curious what you
So
see.
so I mean we can use like Marina as a good example. So you have people like Marina and the entertainment, the crashing out and stuff like that. But like when Skylar Diggins does it, she's now ghetto. She's now, and that's I feel like with the whole Caitlin Clark effect on women's basketball, that has increased. Now everybody who I wouldn't even yeah, I mean, I don't even know. I just feel like it's it's not even that it's just to her. I feel like if you're watching any game,
Hmm.
it doesn't even have to be something done to her. Now it's the players ghetto, the players loud, the players this or that. But like, Sylvie Cunningham, that's just an enforcer. Um, and it's
Yeah.
like Marina, that's just a crash out. And it's like now if somebody else were to have done this, then the world already looks at it a little different. But now since we've moved into this space in women's basketball, they really like there's two sides to seeing things, I guess.
Yeah, I think I've been like I can get philosophical very quickly. So pull me back if we're going if we're
Okay.
if we're getting too far off course here. But I think women's basketball is a really great lens into how much people struggle with intersectionality. Just like women's basketball is a great thing for women. Basketball is a great thing for, black culture in the US. Women's basketball is great for the LGBTQ community, and women's basketball is great for queer women of color. And these issues that we see surface, especially when it's, a prominent a straight white player versus a prominent queer black woman, like the way people get treated, it's like you you look at these intersections of race and gender and sexuality, and if it's something you understand, it's so clear when you watch it happen. If you've done some work, if you've done some or lived it, or in my case, done some work to try to understand it and try to listen and learn, it's so easy to watch how race is such a foundational piece of Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese. One, it's never been a versus. Like literally, they've
They
played against each.
they literally don't play the same position. Like,
Yeah, and they've played against each other a couple of times. They
yeah.
genuinely, I think, are cool with each other, and they're like the rivalry is being projected onto them, and race is a foundation of that projection. And it's like, and it's so clear to me, and it's so frustrating when people can't see it, but it's that thing of like being able to think about that intersectionality is something that people really struggle with and need to do a better job of. And the denial or the confusion around it when you look at women's basketball, I think is a really good example of like how far some people have to go. And like Skylar is a great example, and I just think of someone like Brittany Griner, who like what if she were to act the way that Marina Mabrey acts? Like
Well,
what.
so this is what I say actually specifically for BG. At one time, BG chased a player around the court. No, nothing came out of that in terms of like if that were to have happened right now
Right.
in today's women's basketball, Lord, I don't know what would happen,
Yeah.
honestly. But
Well,
like
yeah,
it
I
was
I
okay to
think you
show
do know what
emotion.
would happen. It's
Oh,
just
we know
dark.
what would happen,
Yeah.
but like it at one point it was okay to show that emotion, and I'm okay with a player showing emotion. I believe like Skylar Diggins is one of my favorite players.
Oh, she's great.
Um, so it's like I get angry, puff up your chest, talk your mess, do that. I always say like someone can talk as much crap as they want to if they're backing it up. Like I don't care what I mean, obviously you have to care somewhat of what they say, but I don't care if they're talking mess, if they're beating on their chest, they're stomping around the court, if they are backing it up and you can't stop them, let them talk their talk. So
And I think there's like that it's so much fun as a fan to watch someone walk that line, to let out the emotion, because it also puts a target on your back, and it puts, the focus on you to be outspoken, to be vocal, to let your emotion show, to, trash talk or whatever. Then you have to back it up, and that's pressure back. And so it's so much fun as a fan to watch someone do that and back it up and do it and it built, and like it's a trust relationship as a fan that like you want to see them act that way because they can back it up. And, it's the Skylar Diggins thing where it's like you can tell that she's the type of player that if I'm coaching against her, I'm actively telling my team not to talk trash to her. Like, do not piss her off.
'cause
Play good defense,
you're
whatever.
firing her
But
up, and
yeah, but
now,
if you
yeah,
get her
yeah,
fired up, she's going to get better. Like
yeah.
she will play better if you piss her off. And like there are certain players that if they get angry, they fall apart and they get worse. And there's certain players that like if they get frustrated, they get a switch flips in their head and they get locked in. And it's like, and that is one like it's a phenomenon in sports, and you can see it so clearly in basketball that is just when you watch it and when you see it happening is so fun to watch when you're just like, oh, they got that look. And they're
Yeah.
like they're coming
And
out of
so,
this
like,
time. I was like, something's
what
about to
like,
happen.
I feel like we have Skylar on one side, and my other player love AT, but on the other side, AT, when AT gets frustrated, it's downhill.
Yeah.
A calm AT is a scary AT because when she's calm, it's like, you don't know what's gonna happen. But when
Yeah,
she
it's
gets
like
frustrated and she's, like, yelling at her teammates, you can see her drop her shoulders and stuff like that, and it's like, "Okay, this game might be over for her."
yeah. And
So
it's like uh, all business versus standing on business. You know, it's just like AT is a businesswoman and she is there to do a job at an extremely high level, and she is fundamental through and through, a great player, a great teammate, and a winner. And then it's like, and if you're not winning and the fundamentals aren't there, and you let emotion get in, the machine is like I don't wanna say she's like a machine because that's not how she plays. She's not like, I'm not
yeah.
saying she's like a machine in that she's rigid in how she plays. I'm saying she's a machine in that, like, a highly functioning machine where then losing control of that emotion is, sand or rocks in the gears in a little bit, and yeah, and falls apart. And so I think that's where you like where I went to Marquette and I worked for the men's basketball team there for a couple of years. I coached high school basketball. I was an assistant coach for a high school basketball team. I taught at basketball camps, or like my summer job was working basketball camps. So I've coached a lot. I've played a lot. Um, it's been a number of years. And so like the wave of analytics in basketball, I don't know anything about, but there's some stuff I know about coaching. And it's so much fun watching coaches who know the players they have and know those personalities and know how to get the most out of them.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and
Yes.
and I'm and it's something that I'm fundamentally frustrated with in the W, which is like back to the intersectionality piece. These women are being asked to do so much. They're being asked to play so much, and just that there are is it is it 0 or 1 black women coaches in the W right now? I think it was down to 0 this year.
Yeah, we're at 0.
Yeah.
Um,
Utterly
Noelle
absurd.
Noelle Quinn was the last one.
Yeah, and
I don't think
and it's
anybody
like
got hired
and
back on.
yeah, and I don't think like and it's not just about that, like, you gotta be a great coach, but it's just like there are plenty of phenomenal black women coaches out there that, like, there's a piece to this era and this moment where someone who has lived through being on a W team and a Team USA team, someone has lived through being, a household name as a player in women's basketball, and who has proven themselves as a coach, who can give that next level understanding of, like, some of that coaching. Like, it's one thing to know the X's and O's. It's one thing to be a great coach or game coach, practice coach. But there's so much going on in these women's lives as this new CBA, new money involved, new their fame is growing, the audience is getting bigger and bigger, and it's just like people who have been there before that are going to understand their experience. It's just like, I don't understand. I mean, I do understand why, but it makes me frustrated that that isn't a huge weight in your hiring process of like, I want, I want a black woman mentor for the black women on my team. They will also be a great mentor for, the white women on the team, or women of any color on the team, the male coaching staff, everyone, but like, there's something about Tyler Marsh that I'm not bought into as the leader of these women. And
Yeah.
and it's
So
not and it's not for him, it's not because he's a man,
yeah.
but like, just if we're at 0 across the league, there's something wrong there.
So this is what I think. So you do have your coaches that are like we can talk specifically about Tyler, but Tyler is a great, I feel like a great X's and O's guy. Versus like Spoon, who Spoon could pull, I don't even know. Every time I watch a video of Coach Spoon, I want to get on the court. I feel that inside. And I believe in a previous video I used the example of me in high school. Like my freshman through junior year of high school, I went to school. We had one of the best coaches, throws coaches. In the state. He could tell you how to put your arm this way, throw this way, get the most out of this. And I just felt like I had like plateaued my junior year. We moved, switched schools. I'm at a new school now, and the throws coach there, he wasn't as like like the technical side of
Mhm.
throwing, but he tapped into my mental, and it was like, I was doing things that I've never would have thought that I could do. One being getting a scholarship to a D1 school. Like, so it's something about being able to know your athlete and the best way to get the most out of them. And I always say I would rather someone tap into my mental. But here's another thing. It's not that Spoon wasn't good with the X's and O's either. It's just that she knew her players.
Yeah.
So, whereas, traditional X might go here, X might go here, O might go here, she knew that X might need to go somewhere else because that's how my player needs it. And that's just the difference. And I would rather have a coach like that over somebody who's like standard, which is why I'm side eyeing Portland this year. Don't know how this is gonna go, but I wish them well. I
Yeah.
just don't know how it's gonna go based off
Yeah,
this coaching
you don't
style.
want anyone to you don't wanna watch anyone fail, but it's
Yeah,
a ha half the games are gonna get lost by somebody,
yeah.
and I think the thing that I have seen in coaching that is I would argue for success at an extremely high level. If you're talking like we're talking 15 head coaching jobs and 45 odd top assistant jobs from there. And it's like, so these are, less than 100 of the best coaching jobs in the world for women's basketball. Of them, half are going to win and half are going to lose, and one team's going to be a championship. So if you're talking championship caliber, I think one of the most important skills as a coach is, like you were saying, know what type of coach you are, and you need your top assistant to be the opposite of your weakness.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's like, and of like, are you, because you need a coach between the ears, someone who, and, in your chest, of just like someone who knows what drives you, knows the sports psychology, knows you as a human, and knows, when you need to get pushed hard and when you need love. And when those look like the same thing or look different, that emotional driver of a coach. And you need someone who is elite at X's and O's and strategy. Like, you need someone who, especially when you're talking playoff series where it's multiple games to win the series and it's X's and like it, like, this is the thing I don't think a lot of people understand. Like, it comes down to very simple choices of what are we going to do about the pick and roll? How are we defending the pick and roll each time? And that changes over the course of a series, and it's a chess match between coaches. You got to win that chess match, and you got to be able to get the most out of people. Some coaches are extremely talented and can do both, and ideally that's what you want. But if you know you have a weakness in X's and O's, it's like there's an assistant out there who you have to be humble enough to say, you're running our offense, you're running our defense, and I'm the head coach, and everything comes through me. But it's your offense, and you implement it, and I think a lot of coaches struggle with that humility to be a head coach, to be the sort of CEO executive of coaching other coaches who are in charge, and be able to be that omnipresent voice while someone else's expertise is excelling someplace else. And it's like, and it's extremely tough because someone does a great job as your assistant and then they get the next head coaching job. And it's like,
So that was what I was gonna mention, like like pre Tyler, and Nat leaving the Aces. That's what we kind of saw. It was like Becky was the head coach, but you had someone who was a developmental coach, and they had somebody who's scouting. And it's like they did their job so well. Becky came to the game in her hoodie blazer, and she directed that team.
yeah.
And then they both, did so well in those positions. Now they're both head coaches.
Yeah, and when you get to that, like, pro level or D1 level, and I'd be curious to see what the style of coaches you had at D1 were, but there are coaches who walk in, like, there's a coach who is starting practice and running practice and getting everything done, and a head coach walks in a, $10,000 suit and comes in, yells at people for a couple hours and leaves and goes back to their office. And it's like, and is that aura of like, I'm in charge, but I'm so much in charge that someone else is doing the majority of the work. They're doing the work they're doing is very specific, and that motive, like, in D1, it's recruiting, but in pros, it's managing the egos of superstars, and being able to do that, like that's worth its weight in gold. But it's like, did you have playing D1? What was the coaching style you saw at that level?
So, um, like for track and field and basketball, it is a little different because you have specific event coaches and stuff like
Right.
that. But I was close to the basketball team, and so I got to see. I think in my time at school, I think the basketball team went through like 3 coaches, and they were like all 3 totally different personalities. It was like one who was like really like the players loved, but they didn't win any games because she didn't necessarily know what she was doing.
Right.
Then you have another Lord, my phone's just going off. Then you had another coach who you have another coach who's like hard nosed, like foot in your chest. But they were winning. But then the players did not like her.
Mm.
And, she ended up taking another job at another school, and it's like finding I guess finding like a middle point of, being able to put a little pressure on your team while also, tapping into the mental, giving them what they need to do on the court, is what they needed. And Lord, our men's basketball team had basically the same coach the whole time I was there, and they were just up and down depending on the players coming through. But that women's team like rotating and rotating and rotating.
Yeah, I think when I think about my coaching style, like I would love, yeah, I'm getting to the age now where, so I was the head manager of the basketball team while I was there for a couple of years. And that's like one of the ladders you can climb to get to be a D1 basketball coach. Is like you start as a manager, you become a grad assistant, you get the director of ops job, then you get your third assistant, then second, then first assistant. And over the course of 20 years, you get to the point where eventually, but now I'm at the age where it's like people my age are getting their first head coaching job. And so I'm looking back and being like, man, if I'd have stayed on that track, I'd be, I would have had to live in Toledo and then, Utah and then, West Virginia. Like you go where the job goes, which is ultimately why I ended up giving up coaching. But anyway, I'm looking at coaching now. And one of the things that I think if I had the chance to be a head coach again would be one of the main philosophies that I'm surprised hasn't made its way more into the mainstream in coaching, which is one because it's something culturally we need to get a lot better around is consent. And it's like I would want to coach based on consent, which is you and I, if you're my player, you and I have an agreement of consent is ongoing, positive, and like an active agreement. And I want active communication of how hard are you willing to let me push you right now? And what do you need from me as a coach? Where if we have an agreement where, hey, I'm ready to like, let's get better today, coach. I want you to push me at a 10. Me at a 10 can be positive. It can be, it can be fiery, but it's like that looks a lot of different ways for me to be at a 10. But also, if you show up to practice and, your dog just died and you're like, "Hey, like, I just need to get through this practice. I'm at a 3." It's like, "Okay, I can process that information and give you that space that, you normally want me to push you. And today you need a little bit of space to just make it through this practice." And it's like, and I think that giving some autonomy of like an active choice of like, how hard do you want to be coached? And hard doesn't necessarily mean angry or fiery, but if you tell me you want to get coached hard and then you're bringing some bullshit to practice, then we're gonna get into it. But if you're bringing bullshit to practice and you and I have had a discussion that like I'm gonna give it my best, it's not gonna be head to head. It's gonna be pulling you aside and saying, "Hey, you're being a detriment to the team with bringing this to practice. Like, how are we gonna get through this?" And so, I think there's like that's how I see the future of coaching going. Is like there are coaches who want to be that fiery like angry foot, like you said, foot in your chest type coach. But in today's world, that just doesn't have its place, but it has its place in sports because it's motivation. It's just
Yeah,
a style. And
I was
that
gonna
style
say,
works really well for some players, but there's gotta be agreements about what's appropriate for two adults. Like it's a game. We're trying to get better at a game. We're adults in a workplace. You're in pros, it's a workplace. In college, it's school. It's like this is a professional environment. What is appropriate for us to behave together? And it's like, and if you want me to get in your face and motivate you, we got to have some agreements around like, when do you pull that lever and say, hey, that was too much? and
Yeah.
you need to back off. And
I was
if
gonna
we
say,
can have
during March Madness this year, I can't even remember which team, but they had, like, zoomed in, and she was, like, in her chest, and she was like, "I believe in you." And
mhm,
I literally I was like, "Y'all, that's the type of motivation I need, but I have to, like, let a tear come out first." Like, if you were to talk to me that way, I would need a 1 tear, maybe 2 to come out, and then I got you. I just need a moment.
yeah,
But that's
and
how
then
I am in life. Like sometimes, like scream, shout, whatever. I give me one moment, and I'm gonna get it together, and I'm gonna make the best out of the situation.
yeah.
But I need a moment first.
I never had a coach. I played a lot of sports and I never had a coach who knew how to unlock me. It's like I'm up here all the time. I'm in control. I'm thinking, I'm plotting, I'm trying to lead, I'm trying to be a good teammate, but there is a fire burning down and that's where some of like my activism comes in as an adult of like to survive this world, I got to be working hard at something or else I'm going to be eating myself from the inside. And I never had a coach who knew how to unlock that beast for competition for the next hour and a half, next 2 hours, like, I'm going to get you there. I'm gonna help you get there, and then together, we're gonna help put it back in the box. Because it's like, it's letting that and I think that's the piece that a lot of a lot of young athletes struggle with is being able to get there, and you see it a lot more, and you see it a lot problematically in contact sports, where it's like needing to get to that edge, but then needing to learn the skill of how do you put that back in the appropriate box inside when you go back into, your romantic relationship and things get heated there. How do you keep that physical aggression in its proper place where it's got no place in my home? And I learned how to let it out and put it back in on the field.
Yeah.
And that's more heightened in contact sports, but it's very much for basketball as well. And it's like, and people are, it's like, it's why the press conferences are so long after the game. Sometimes it's like these people need a minute. They need a minute to get back to themselves because it is a battle out there. And to be at your best, you got to learn how to let that out. But then you got to go talk to a reporter who's going to write down every word you're saying and
Yeah. Yeah.
put it online. It's like it takes a little bit to rein that back in and get that polish back on like, yep, and I think a lot of these players in especially the profitable sports, basketball, football, um, you're seeing them get the proper media coaching that they need because it's like it's a skill and you can be really bad on camera, really bad on a mic, and you can learn like it's talent. Like you're like you can't learn to be great, but you can
Yeah.
learn to not make a fool of yourself.
Yeah, and
And
I think somebody, they always say like, "Oh, this person does never needs media training." I think Anthony Edwards is one of those people. Like his authenticity of who he is, he's from Atlanta, like that you can't teach that to anybody. They just let him go. And I mean, maybe he does have like a little media training behind that and what he can and cannot, fully when, crossing that line.
yeah,
But that's one of the few that I've seen. It's like he's authentic. You're getting him.
yeah, I agree. I love Ant, and I think he's a great positive energy in sports, and he's a superstar face of the league. He could use a little bit of training in maybe some of his personal texts. I think but that's a different thing than being in an interview. He had some personal life issues he could have handled with a little bit more tact,
Yeah.
but he's a very authentic person. That but in that case, he also like it was also defensible in that like he was dealing with a tough situation with a romantic partner and shared openly and honestly what he wanted and shared openly and honestly like how he was showing up to that situation.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, that's what we're asking from men is like be able to communicate like what the content of what he was saying was a little bit rough, but it's like there's
He told you straight up what he
yeah,
wanted.
yeah, and,
And
and
if
he
you didn't
was
like what I mean, he told you. You can never
yeah.
say he didn't tell you.
And much better to communicate that actively and openly and have a conversation, and it's one and it's like, yeah, and I'm sure he wasn't expecting the screenshots and those to go public, but it's also like, yeah, it's tough. But it's like, yeah, we need a world where can communicate like openly and honestly and be yourself and have your it's, I think that's one of the toughest things about, being being a superstar athlete, and I think going back to Angel Reese, you don't see anyone handle it better than her, but you can see the way her walls go up sometimes, how much of a toll it takes on her. But it's like, to be that level of superstar, you're on guard all the time because people are looking for some way to take you down. And to be able to be yourself, compete at a high level, navigate a business world, still find ways to have fun and have joy within all of that, like it takes a lot to be that level of a star. And I think Angel is so far in her career, people can screw up, and I got room for people to screw up, but so far, she is one of the best role models I've ever seen at managing fame, at also continuing to improve her game. Like the work she put in the Unrivaled season, the work that I saw her put in Chicago, and the way she leveled up from day one of her rookie year, where she didn't look dominant, into where she is right now, going into year 3, she has put in some work, and so and then the Victoria's Secret runway and everything, and her shoe launch, like she is the one of the best role models I've ever seen of being yourself, taking care of yourself, and continuing to grow your brand and your stardom. And I hope, it's like, I just want to see people keep her safe. I want the people around her to keep her safe enough, because you can see her walls go up, and you can see how much it takes to earn her trust. And I think that's coming from a very real place. You're starting to see these stars know how to manage that. And I think that's a really cool part of where we're seeing the W head.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think, like, and sometimes the media, I get you have to do a job as media. Even when I'm like in pressers for like the dream and stuff like that, I try to ask the light questions. Especially like after a bad game, because like I understand you just went out there, worked hard. It didn't turn out how you wanted it, and um, I already know somebody's gonna ask you a hard question, so let me just be the nice one and, ask you a little soft question, get a little laugh out of you. But like even yesterday with the Atlanta Dream presser, everybody's asking Angel about basketball, 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 and it wasn't until Megan Hall had, asked her about her life, like how difficult or how has your experience been, from Chicago to Atlanta, because sometimes you do wanna ask the person how the person is feeling, you know? So, yeah, I
Yeah, I'm hoping, like, I can see a wonderful home for her in Atlanta. Like, knowing that city, knowing that team and that fan base, like, I can see her thriving there. And that's just and that's what I hope. I also really like their roster this year. I'm pretty jealous of that roster, and so I think I'll be cheering for the Dream a little bit too. Alicia is one of the easy. I don't. There's no one that's easy, like, that I've ever seen, that's easier to be a huge fan of than Alicia Craig. She's fantastic, and so, like,
well, I always tell, and this is what I even when the announcement went out, I was like, "Hey, fans, like, the Dream team and the Dream fans are probably one of the most liked group of people." I was like, "So, before y'all come over here, leave the nonsense at the door." But at the same time, yes, the Dream. Like, I've been a Dream fan since I was, like, 10. Like, I started going to games in 20 here I go telling my age again. But, in 2010 is when I started going to the Dream games. I was going to games when they were still playing at Phillips Arena,
mhm.
and so, like, I grew up on the Dream. And so now, like, I always post, like, I used to pray for times like this because I did,
Yeah.
Like, I was a big Angel McCoughtry fan. It was, we've been close twice. And I think, last year I was like 30 wins. Like, I, I used to pray for times like this. And then even now with the whole trade and everything. So I cannot wait for the season. I always welcome anybody new in, because the team is great, the players are great,
And
and
Atlanta's a sports town. Like, Atlanta loves their teams, and it's like, and they've loved the Dream for a long time, but, like, it's one of those markets that give that city something to cheer for, and it is gonna be, one of the best parts of the summer.
yeah, I was gonna
And
say, like, when the Braves won, city went crazy, because they've football is, really dominant, in the US, especially if you're in a football city, and so the Falcons have taken over Atlanta in terms of sports, and I feel like the Dream and the Hawks are, like, on the come up in terms of, what they can do, and I still believe the Dream will bring home a championship before any of the others, but
Yeah, I
yeah.
with their I mean, it's gonna be very I don't wanna say like, I think they're a contender for this season, but it's gonna be this is gonna be one of the I made a video about it the other day where this is one of the purest evaluation moments for coaches and GMs. Like, the CBA and the mass migration of players where talent shifted all over. This is ev uh, except for a couple, every fan base really has a right to be like, we have enough talent to win this year because so much talent moved around and the money's there to even things out where, there's enough money to go to a bad team and be the highest paid player than to be the fourth highest paid player on a championship contender. So even the franchises that haven't been great in free agency in the past are looking pretty good. Chicago. And I think you have a lot of excitement, but it's going to be really interesting to see like there's going to be teams that mesh right away because of the style of players and especially for a team like the Dream that has a big four, they've all played together in other capacities in Team USA and other leagues, and so it's like they know how to play together a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how they mesh right away, but then it'll be like how the season goes, how rotations develop, how offensive and defensive schemes develop and change as it's like you have to learn yourself, then the other coaches learn you, then they adjust, and then you got to adjust again. So it's like by the time the playoffs roll around, we're going to have like the third or fourth iteration of how these teams are playing. And it's going to be like a lot of talent, a lot of different teams, and really great coaching is going to get the most out of their talent. And so it's like Atlanta could be one of those teams. And I'd be right there. I'm someone I have a hard time taking on a new team and being a fan of theirs, but I will cheer for my friends to have a great experience cheering for their team, and so it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
so I'll be rooting for Atlanta for you to have that experience,
yeah.
and for Angel and for Alicia and we have some friends who live in Atlanta as well, and so it's like I would have no problem cheering for an Atlanta championship, but I think it's going to be a really fascinating season in terms of gameplay schemes and how coaches adjust because it's like
Yeah, I was gonna
everybody
say,
moved
I think
everywhere.
it'll heavily rely on teams clicking, and you have some teams who are at that advantage. The Dream re-signed so many players, the Aces re-signed so many players, the Liberty. So you have some of these teams who are like, okay, this was the same team. They could just build off of. They just got better. They added new
Yeah.
pieces that made them better. And you have some teams, Sky, that are like all these great players. How do they work together?
Yeah. And do you have the coach that is gonna get the most out of them? And it'll be interesting. It's like, and then there's a dynamic of like leadership in the locker room too, where like looking at the sky, it's like you got Skylar coming in, and it's just like, well, it's her locker room. Let's see
Yeah.
what she gets out of it. You got other vets there too. You got Sloot and you got Azrae and everybody, and so but it's like she is the dominant force, and then you have teams where sometimes you have too much talent, not too much talent, but like talent that doesn't play well together. It's like there are GMs who create a situation where there aren't enough shots to go around, or where you have too many players that can only score with the ball in their hands, and you don't have enough you don't have that balance of slashers and spot up shooters, and you don't have the right guards that can feed the right bigs. There's so many different combinations of like how you build a roster that's competitive in basketball, and it you don't need like having the most talent doesn't always make you the best team, and it's like, but
So
you got to start with the talent
I
to
was
have
gonna
a chance
say,
to be the best team.
I feel like I personally use the links for that.
Yeah,
Great coach, have the talent, so close, but they just cannot, get over that last hump. And I feel like that I honestly believe that's why they switched up and broke up the team like they did this year. Because they had the talent. We've seen it. They had, co-defensive player of the year, MVP candidates. And so it's like we see it. We know you guys have it. You guys have a great coach. What is missing? So let's break everything up, build it back up.
Yeah. And then
Another
you have,
one,
is Fee gonna be full strength
I don't
for
think
another?
so. I don't think so either. So I just think there's a lot of up in the air with them. They might be just in rebuild mode, and that's okay.
Yeah,
Every
let
team
Fee
goes
get
through
back
it.
to 100% for next year.
Yeah.
And a lot of people signed one-year contracts.
Yeah.
And so there's gonna be a lot of people back up for big money next year that it will be interesting. And Minnesota is a destination where it's like you have the coach, you have the fan base, obviously they have the money to pay people, and then you have one of like there's Asia and there's Fee, and then there's everybody else. And it's like those 2 teams are gonna be in it every year that those 2 players are healthy because those 2 players are that good right now. And then beyond that, you have
Well,
teams
I would put Stewie up there also.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I feel like now Stewie's heading not in no way I'm saying that Stewie is because Stewie's not washed, but Stewie is heading down the ramp of I wouldn't even people like to cancel people. I wouldn't even say that Stewie has finished peaking, but like, you know what I mean?
yeah. She
Like
she's
she's always gonna be a great player.
she's as good as she'll ever be.
Yeah.
And she could be that good for a while longer. Who
Yeah.
knows? She
Yeah,
she
yeah.
has that type of game, and that type of mentality. And so, but yeah, it's like she's not gonna all of a sudden unlock a new part of her game that makes
Yeah,
her
yeah.
that much better. And don't get me wrong, that's still like I'm talking about top 3 players in the league. And so
Yeah.
it's like it's
Yeah.
very significant to be at that level and be able to maintain. But it's like there's something about Asia that is so dominant right now that it's
'Cause
hard.
she has the potential to get better.
Yeah, like, she's still peaking, like, could be at her peak, and if she's at her peak, great. She's one of the greatest of all time where she's at right now,
Yeah.
and she still has more that she can do with her game, and and you have young and up and coming stars who also have a ton of talent, but it's a league of th that's the thing that I'm excited for the next 5 years of this league is this is a league of grown ass women. This is a league of like, you don't come in as a rookie and be the best player because there's development and there's being that level of a competitor at a pro level that is gonna win playoff series because they're playing chess while you're playing checkers and their game is that good. And it's like and then there's a lot of talent coming in that in the next 5 years, they're going to be reaching their peaks as well. And it's like they're like like a league of this size and the talent that's in there right now in the next 5 years, you have the chance for all 15 teams to have a superstar
Yeah.
who who could win a championship on their own. It's like, of those 15 women, a lot still have to develop, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. But it's like we're in that talent pool where it's like you could have 15 teams that have someone who is in the conversation for the best player in the league. And then you have GMs building rosters around them with insane other talent and insane talent of role players. And so it's going to be a fascinating expansion period and a fascinating period to watch elite players just continue to get better and better because they have the money to focus on their elite. They're getting paid enough where if they want, they can go make money elsewhere. But like you're getting paid enough now where if you need the off season for your body to recover and for you to train and work on something,
You
you could
can.
make that choice.
Yeah.
And it'll be I'm very excited for the next 5 years of this league for just the level of stardom that we're going to see and the elite stars competing against one another
Yeah.
is going to be great.
'Cause I was gonna say not even, like we're looking at our league now, and it's like solid players. There are more coming. The college scene, yes, a lot of people have moved around just because of, NIL and transfer portal and all of that. But like the talent coming in is like insane. So I feel like you said in the next what is it? we'll have 18 teams by 2030. So, yeah, that
And people are worried, it's like, and that's where I'm not worried about the like talent pool is like there was a time where there was a time not very long ago where only the top 3 draft picks made a roster.
yeah,
It was like the draft and the W didn't matter because all the spots were taken by people who weren't getting out competed by rookies.
yeah.
Where the rookie classes are better athletes, or not better athletes, are at a further point in their development than they have been in the past.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
every year we've seen an increase in, like, second round picks, like,
Yeah.
making rosters.
Making it, and now you add 4 rosters over the course of 4 years that open up the space for, there's gonna be some bad teams, and there's gonna be teams that don't have the superstars they need to compete for a championship, but that's any sport, but there's enough roster spots where you're gonna see young players getting a chance to develop their game in this league. They always have chances to go play in other leagues and develop and come back, but there's going to be chances to do that and play in this league, be on a roster where it is, you can't underestimate the value of getting worked by someone that's better than you. Like if you're coming into this league as a big and you have the chance to get, absolutely worked by Asia, you are going to learn a lot. But if you don't even have a spot in this league, you don't have a chance to get worked by her. You don't have that feeling of like, oh my God, she just did that to me. Like, I think I know what I need to work on this off season because that was embarrassing. It's like, so if you go and play in a league where you're the best, you're not learning that deep and emotional experience of like, we just lost by 20 to a team and I need to figure out why and how. And like that is such an important part of player development is getting cooked. And you are learning from some of the best basketball players in the world in that league right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say somebody has to set a hard screen on you. You have to, pour Sonia Citron. But the hard screens, the sending your shot to the concession stands, you have to have that happen. You're welcome to the league. So
Yeah,
you
or
can
even
get
what we were
better.
talking about earlier, the talking trash moment
Yeah.
where you flip the switch for someone and then you experience what it's like for someone to drop 20 points and a half on you specifically,
Yeah.
on like you guarding them and your coach yelling at you that you can't stop them, and them with a shit-eating grin on their face because they know they're just cooking you, and it's just like, and that's what I love about basketball. It's those individual matchups, it's the coaching chess matches, it's those like special moments where where someone just gets hot and it's like, and it's a great team sport and a great individual sport where you got to win as a team, but it's also an individual can take over and you can impact the game in so many ways. It's my favorite sport and I love watching the way it's developed. And I I'm just extremely excited for, you know, this season and what's coming next. I mean, granted, I'm I'm gonna be in Wintrust Arena for the Chicago Sky watching. We'll see, we'll see. I have hope that they'll be competitive, but I think there'll be some. Uh, I'll be very excited to see the road team a lot. I think.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll be there for All-Star Weekend.
Well, yeah, and it's like thank gosh we put together a roster worthy of having all star there. Because
because I was like,
we were maybe not going to have an all star on our roster
I was
there
like,
for a
yeah, I
hot
was like,
minute.
"So, how do you have All-Star Weekend and your home team doesn't have an All-Star?" But glad they got that fixed and handled, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, I'm excited. I think that they did such a good job in Indy last year. Um and we were there for that. Did we see you there in
No, I
Indy?
was not there for that. I'm gonna say I've seen you guys I saw you guys in Brooklyn
Yeah. And then
for
in
Unrivaled.
Miami for Unrivaled.
Were y'all there for Philly?
No, we didn't make it to Philly.
Okay.
We were we were brand new parents
Yeah, so
at
I
Philly.
I was, like, on a world tour for, like, 2 months, 3
Yeah, you've had a
months.
crazy run.
Um
It's been fun to watch.
Yeah. And I'm supposed to be going on another tour this summer, to different cities. We'll see how that goes because I just finally got to a point where my shoulder is, like, healed up and I can, like,
Mhm.
actually use it. So we will see how this summer tour everybody who's helping me plan it is, like, excited, so we will see, how the summer tour comes together. I might be in a city near you.
Very cool. Let us know. Yeah, it'll be fun to watch. I'm excited for you. I'm glad to hear your shoulder's doing better and that you're onward and upward. Like that's the and not like I don't want to sound like a leech or anything, but that's one of the cool things about like being in sports media when this league is taking off. There's so many there's a lot of stories that are worth telling. There's a lot of content to create and there's, a lot of cool opportunities. And so it's been fun watching you move and shake and, do your thing. And so we'll continue to root for you. And I, really appreciate this opportunity and being able to talk with you today on this show. This has been great.
Course, I always tell people they don't know, like, the backstories, the behind the scenes, the late nights, the difficult conversations, the stuff like that, so
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of work, and it's one of those things where unless you've worked in entertainment and worked in sports, you'll never understand sports entertainment. It's just like they're two crazy worlds of long hours and late nights, and it's like one of my and just like the amount of time you can lose editing video and it's like this is like and I'm making TikToks now but I used to cut up game film for the team
I
and
was
it's
gonna
just like
say the editing a whole video, hour-long podcast episode, and then your computer shuts off and you lose everything
oh
is the most frustrating like, is the most frustrating thing, but yeah, I I literally like, the next day I went and got a new computer. I was like, "I can't," like,
yeah
I
your time is more valuable than like losing that much work and it's so disheartening and it's just like the technology's gotta work for you. I've been there and yeah and it is. Like I've had because one of like making TikToks with my daughter, one of the things that I do is just sort of talk for like a long time. And I've found that like there are times where I'm like, ooh, I got some really good stuff here. And then I look and then I upload the video to TikTok and it's like the video is like 30 minutes long. I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna
yeah,
take so long. Like
yeah.
even watching it through will be a half hour, but editing it down and like finding the snippets that like actually worked, like this is not worth it. So I try to limit myself now to not monologue for more than 5 minutes because
Yeah, and it's so easy, like, on the when you're on the outside to judge it a certain way and, this or that, but, like, when you're doing it and you're, like, editing by yourself and you're, coming up with graphics and you're posting on social media and, like, that work right there is like and then you have your own personal life.
yeah.
Like, you have your job, I'm in school, you have all this other stuff, and it's so difficult, and honestly, like, I knew it would be a challenge before doing this, but, like, actually being in it, it's rewarding in places you go and people you meet, but Lord, all that it takes behind the scenes will have you questioning yourself.
Yeah, and that's where you have to have creators talk about your why. It's like your why if your why is I wanna get famous, that's never gonna be good enough and you're gonna quit and it's not worth it. And being famous is I would assume I'm not, but I would assume is terrible.
Yeah.
And so but it's
It
like
has to be. I always say that. I could never be like someone super famous. Literally, I think I was at Unrivaled and someone like was like, "Oh, Courtside Cousins, you know me." I didn't know how to like handle the interaction.
yeah,
I don't ever know how to handle the interaction. So I can only imagine like the basketball players and how they feel.
yeah, yeah, and I've always wanted to be a a best-selling author. It's like, you can know my name written down, but, like, I don't
Yeah.
want you to recognize my face
Yeah, yeah,
necessarily.
yeah.
But yeah, it's when we were at Unrivaled, I got recognized, I think it was, it was more than 10 times. And granted, it was 2 games, it was and it was an event curated of, like, the people who see my content. And so it's like, I've gone to other events and, not been recognized at all there. So I make a lot of Unrivaled content, and just the energy that that took. It was great. I felt very grateful. It fills me. It's like because the content I make, I intentionally try to make you feel good or make you think. Yeah, I talk about some tough stuff, but I try to come at it from a place that doesn't make you so much of TikTok and Instagram is to make you enraged or whatever. And it's like, I want to help you feel something. I want to help you think about something, or I just want to make you smile. And I want to make it easier to get through your day and not harder. And having people say like, hey, like the stuff you do helps me through my day. Like that meant means and meant a lot to me. And then it's like, okay, if that happened everywhere you go, like this was one event of like very specific fans that I talk to very specifically. But if that happened other places in life, like, oh, I would hate that. That's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
what I want at all. But I do want to, I am an entertainer. I do love making people smile, making people laugh. And so I want to make it's like it's weird because like I want to make more people smile and laugh. I want to grow my following, but about it's not about growing my following. It's about trying to make a difference in people's lives
Well,
of like,
growing a community, I think is bigger than, growing just a following. Like people can follow you, but once you've built a community of people who like will come through, Lord, I mean, I Brooklyn was enough for me. Like getting to Brooklyn last minute, sitting at an AU game on a Sunday and my flight left out at like 9 a.m. the next morning, and I booked my flight at the AU championship game. So I was like, what is my life? What am I doing? And everybody was like, we will make sure you're good when you're in Brooklyn. The community was enough for me. Like, that's my biggest thing, the community.
yeah, and I think that's where also like we alluded to it a little bit earlier, where there's plenty of darkness in the world, and part of what I talk about with my daughter and our content is like, how did I justify bringing a life into this world? There's so much going on. It's like I have to have a plan. I have to be teaching her how to navigate this, or else what am I even doing? And I keep on, and so I think a lot about like, how are we making it through this moment? How are we making through, making this country in this world someplace that's livable. And it's beautiful and it's frustrating where it's like the answer is simple. The answer is community. The answer is building connections locally. The answer is like investing in people that invest in you and in building those connections and taking the time and the effort to share of yourself and let others share with you. And that is what I keep coming back to. Like you said, the community is what matters. And community is the only thing that's going to save us. It's like we like in very literal ways, but in the bigger picture ways of like we're not gonna buy our way out of this. We're not gonna vote our way out of this. But we build enough. We connect with our communities. We build strength in our communities. We make it about us and not some politician or some rich person or some whatever. It's like it comes from the collective we. And it's like, and that's one of the things I love about women's basketball is like it's been a fast track for me to find some of those people and find some of that we that it's like for whatever reason the people that love women's basketball tend to agree with me on some of the other stuff that's really important to me. And so it's a good there's a lot of different types of women's basketball fans, but there tend to be a pretty strong community and a I feel safer making a friend in the women's basketball community. I'm less worried that like, oh, you're going to find out something about what I believe personally and not be my friend anymore. Where it's just like, there's a pretty good chance you're cool with the stuff that I believe.
Yeah.
And so in that community, that it becomes safe and welcoming quickly, and then we protect it together against the people that are not safe for that or bringing a different energy to that. And I
Yeah.
think that's a really important part of this community and going to be the biggest challenge for the growth of the W in the next 5 years is like how do we keep it a safe space? How do we keep it centered on the voices of queer women of color, um, and continue to amplify those voices and to like I keep bring it back to Tasha Cloud of like, how do we make sure that it's not okay that she's not signed and that we make sure that if it is her being blackballed for being an activist, that they know that we know and that we're upset about it and we're going to, withhold our support until something different happens. It's like, how do we make sure the people that do a good job of leading in this space are protected when corporate dollars are saying, "Hey, don't re-sign this woman who is still the best available free agent and unsigned," and I am furious about it.
Yeah. Yeah, Amplify Voices community. I do thank you for being part of my community.
Likewise.
And same thing with Tracy. She'll get her own episode.
Yeah, yeah. We've referenced my wife, she'll get her own episode
Yeah,
'cause she's
yeah,
doing some very cool stuff, so check
yeah,
that out when we have the opportunity to get there.
yeah. But I do thank you for coming on here today.
Yeah.
We get to now enjoy the editing of this long podcast episode, but it feels so great to be back. I haven't recorded it in a while just because I've been doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff. There might be a website in the works,
Great.
but yeah, there's just been a lot of stuff behind the scenes that I've been working on. And so yeah, it feels great to be in front of a camera again and to discuss women's basketball, which actually I have a few more episodes lined up to record in the next week. So
Wonderful. Well, I really appreciate you having me, and this has been so much fun. I love chatting with you every time we get the chance, and hopefully we may try to get to Atlanta. It'd be great to see you there. We'll see you for sure. We're coming through All Star Weekend, and who knows? I'm sure our paths will cross in person again. On top of that, I'm sure in some way, somehow, soon enough. But like you said, I really appreciate you being a part of my community as well, and giving me the opportunity to come and chat with you here. This has been a blast. I love. Uh, if you couldn't tell already, I'm a good talker, and I like being given the opportunity to talk about things I care about.
yeah. But yeah, thank you again. And cousins, I will see you. Honestly, I don't know which episodes are gonna come out which
Yeah.
in which order, but there will be episodes. So I guess we will talk to you later.
Good to see you.